good? So here we are live for the Momentum Podcast, and I got a few special guests, a few brothers and co-trainers who we've been together for about 4 or 5 years. And today we really wanted to just go live and just discuss our experiences. And we came up with a question that we think is really important as it relates to the athletic culture and athletic world, and what prevents athletes from maximizing their full potential. And we were once athletes, and I think we can all attest to that. We didn't maximize our full potential. And so we want to speak from experience personally, and then speak from experience as it relates to dealing with other athletes. And so I'll let the guys introduce themselves briefly, and then we'll go right into the questions. And then if anybody, as we go, we have, people that want to question, comment, throw it at us, and we'll want to engage as much as possible for those who are involved, in terms of Facebook Live. So, Antoine, you want to go ahead and start? The old ball coach?
Old ball coach. A.K.A. Antoine Taylor, A.K.A. Twan D. Yes, my name is Antoine Taylor. I have been coaching privately for about 12 years. Played college football at the University of St. Francis, played 6-year professional arena football, and then I've been in the space of personal training and coaching in the club arena. I'm enjoying it, and just recently launched Matrix Quarterback Training, best quarterback training out. So that's me, Antoine Taylor.
I'm Darrion White. So I've been coaching for about as long as Antoine, about 12 years. Started out on a very low level with Metro football. I'm a graduate of Southside High School, played football there, baseball, wrestled. Also played at University of St. Francis. I'm a graduate of the University of St. Francis. Played football and baseball there too as well. Currently, I'm the head football coach for the 7-on-7 program here at Traction Athletic Performance, and I'm also the receivers coach at Bishop Lewis High School. So still continuing my coaching career, just excited to be here. Glad you guys invited me to be on the podcast and ready to get rolling.
Lawrence Barnett, as stated on the last podcast, I've been part of AWP Traction for about, I'd say, going on 20 years now, being a part of the training process, actually being in it as a student, as an athlete, and then also being a mentor/coach probably for the last 7 years now. Just excited to be on here with these guys. I've been learning from these guys since I was an athlete, since I was a player. So just happy to be in this circle, happy to be able to reach athletes with these people and learn from these people every day. So let's get started.
And we chose a topic because, again, it's a critical topic. There's a lot of athletes in our area, just a lot of athletes in general, a lot of young people engage in sports. And so I just thought it would be good, man, if we can just talk about what's the hindrance. Why are people not, being able to achieve maximum potential or their full potential as they get involved with sports. And I know growing up, we're all from Fort Wayne. I know, Darrion, you're a little, Chicago.
I came later.
Came a little later, but all grew up in Fort Wayne. And, I tell people all the time, like, me and my process and my ability to make it to a certain level, I just think that it's no reason why I should be one of the few people who have made it to that point. And even in that situation, I never maximized what I was doing or my ability to play. It was just, I'm looking at it, I'm looking at all the athletes because we know who's more athletic, who should be here, who should, we always have that internal comparison and we see, who should be at certain levels. But I look at it and I'm like, here I am working extremely hard and I got to a certain point, but these dudes have way more than I did.
Yeah.
And so how does that even work for me to get to a certain point and then they are limited to get to a certain level in their life and they had way more than I had.
Yeah.
And so we see it. We went to school with a lot of players who didn't make it to certain points, and it's like, yo, you should be in the NFL, you should be in the NBA, you should be doing this. And so I just think we got to discuss transparently, openly, honestly about what it is or what are the things that stop us from getting to that level. And I know going through this process, one of the things that comes to my mind is just really the knowledge of the process. And not a lot of people have a true, thorough knowledge of what the process really entails. And I think there's surface knowledge, and then I think there's specific knowledge that individuals need. And the surface knowledge is, what it is to be recruited, what's the recruiting process looks like. You can go further and you can talk about, the agent world and what that looks like and how you should be educated on that. You can talk about even going back. So what does it take to develop? But then you got the specifics where it's like, okay, that's the overall thing, but every individual is different.
Every individual is different.
And so what does that even look like? And so that's one of the things, and it's so much. Like, I want to talk about politics. I want to talk about, because that's a huge limitation to a lot of people achieving. And so many people are, affected by the politics in sports.
Not really. Are you sure?
I mean,
you think so?
It must be my imagination, because I just think a lot of people are ill affected by the politics in sports. And so
it can't be in sports. Can't be no politics in sports.
No, that doesn't exist.
Can't be.
So
if we start talking about that, we might get a lot of people watching this podcast. And we start talking about politics.
Well, that's what
should we do it?
We're gonna go into.
Okay,
we're gonna talk about.
Hold up now.
Start talking about that.
Hey, start inviting your friends. For you 16,000 people that's on there, invite your friends real quick.
16,000.
We about to get lit. We gonna speak truth.
Right.
I think you got to understand that we definitely not going to be able to get this done today.
No.
So, like, the topics we're going to talk about, it's going to be stretched. It's going to have to go session 1, session 2, session 3, session 4, because, that's a lot. That's a lot to take in, especially when you get to politics. We don't need a whole hour on politics.
It ain't no politics in sports, y'all.
Yeah, it doesn't exist.
Yeah, you need sequels of conversation when it comes to politics and sports.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well,
and so,
but I think you got to, I can go start it off, because I think you got to, when you think about that and you think about the politics that every single one of us had to endure or go through while we were athletes, I think, you have to definitely look back and understand the mind. I think, with politics, I think the times that I overcame politics and was still able to be successful in whatever I was doing is because I could master my thinking. I could tell myself that I'm not going to let somebody's words, or a certain situation take me away from my destination. I think a lot of times, a lot of people, as I said on my last podcast with Jake Archibald, a lot of people hit adversity with politics and don't know how to overcome it and shut down. And the times where I shut down is the times I wasn't able to perform when I got my opportunity in being in the realm of politics. But the times that, I could have that voice in my head telling myself that I'm still who I am. I still know I'm going to reach this goal. I still know I'm going to push through, and whatever is being said to me, whatever situations I'm being put in, I'm going to tell myself, okay, I'm going to overcome this situation. I should be a starter. I should get an A on this test. I should, beat this guy out on this rep. I think that's one of the biggest things when you think about not reaching your full potential. One of the things is just not being able to master your thinking. You got to be able to tell yourself, even when you feel inferior, that you're superior. Like, even when you're getting beat, and I tell my DBs all the time, we play the hardest position. You're going to get beat 100 times before you may win one. How are you going to be able to master your thinking to be able to tell yourself, I'm going to still win that one rep? So I think mastering your thinking is huge, and I think I'm just going through the points I have. I think what you value is huge, and I think understanding that environment is more powerful than hereditary. I think what you value, we just came in before this, and we were talking to a kid, when Dre talks about the process and understanding and knowledge of the process, I think a big part of not having knowledge in the process is not understanding what you value. I asked a kid just now, like, hey, you want to pay 7 on 7? He said, no, I'm not paying for that.
It's too expensive.
That's the first thing he said. I was like, why are you not paying? Like, what do you mean you don't want to pay for it? So then I broke it down to him a little bit and was like, all right, how much are those Yeezys on your feet? I was like, just tell the truth. He said he paid $300 for the Yeezys. So I'm like, all right, well, we broke math down and did that. Like, that's half of what you could pay to play 7 on 7. So you value wearing shoes over actually feeding into your development. So I think, understanding what you value is huge, you know. And we said that in the last podcast, you know, priorities and consistency. People have wrong priorities and they don't value the right things. They value, you know, fun over work, and then they miss out on opportunities. And then I think the last thing I have and will feed is being in the right environment. Me and Dre always talk about this, you know, there's kids who, you know, have been to college, but they stayed away from a certain environment. So when they got to college, they didn't know how to adapt. And I feel like, I mean, I am going to talk up traction. You know, our environment is a college environment. It's an environment that's going to force you to go through adversity and force you to push your way out of it. And I think a lot of the people that went through the process, like Dre said, and actually listened to the people who have been through a process, they went through our process and they ended up on top. You know, I remember my mentor always telling me, like, you know, hey, if you sitting in front of a millionaire, you're not gonna listen to how to make $1 million. You know what I mean? Like, if you see somebody who's been in the NFL, who's been to college, you're not gonna sit down and take the knowledge and listen to him about how to get to college, how to get to the NFL. Like, so I think what you value, environmental, understanding the power of environment and master your thinking is the reason why people don't reach their full potential.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll piggyback on that real quick because I want to go back to the topic of politics, is where we started off at.
Can you clarify in sports, because I don't want to scare people away?
Okay, so we're not going to start talking conservative and liberal talk right now. We're not going to go red and blue. So when we're talking about politics and sports, we're talking about things, and it's an interesting topic because it's the thing that has the least to do with the kid's ability.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
when you start talking about politics, it's like, and I think that's what's difficult for a player, is that for so many years of their life, everything was kind of geared around how well they could perform their sport. Mm-hmm. And as they get older and politics start to become involved, it has least to do with their skill. So when LB is talking about having a certain mind state going into things, you have to have certain strength of character to deal with those situations. Mm-hmm. So when we're talking about politics and sport, we're talking about maybe the coach's son is getting more playing time than me, or you know, it could be a lot of different things. The coach likes this guy more than me, or it could be even, you can have politics involved that don't have anything to do with the coaches. It could be having to do with the parents and the parents' mm-hmm. relationship with the coach, or the parents' mm-hmm. relationship with the other parents on the team. When you're dealing with team sports, you have so many different factors outside of just the kid's ability, and politics is one of the ones that gets involved that I think drives the biggest wedge between the kid and what he's trying to do and what he's trying to accomplish, because it has the least to do with what he can actually do on the field. Mm-hmm. You have to have some sort of strong character to deal with that. I think one thing that we do well here is we understand how to navigate through those things. And so what we like to do is we like to build certain characteristics in a kid to where if they're having those kind of influences on the outside that have nothing to do with their ability to perform, they have some tools to go into it and come out of it with the right mind state and mm-hmm. be competitive in it regardless of what's going on around them. It's an unfortunate factor in the kids' growth and improvement, but it's something that we obviously know that exists out there. We have to address it.
Yeah, and when it comes to politics, I like to use the term politricks, because really it's a trick, you know, on the mind of the individuals who's engaging in it, and then it's a trick on the individual who's benefiting we say, quote unquote, benefiting from it, because they're not really benefiting from.
Really getting hurt.
They're really getting hurt in the long-term process because they're given something that they weren't equipped to handle, or they weren't prepared to really earn. Right. And in that, there's obviously a lot of lost development or lack of development. Mm-hmm. So when they get into a tough situation, when they get to college, then what do you do? Mm-hmm. You know, dad can't pay your way through playing time. Mm-hmm. Dad can't. Influence a coach, because when you go to college, a coach will cuss a parent out.
Man.
When you get there now in recruiting, they won't cuss you out. In recruiting,
when you get there,
it's best friends, but they'll snap on the parent. Right. And then what it does is it makes the child or the player or the individual look really bad amongst the coaches, because the coaches talk day in and day out. Mm-hmm. So I think, when you talk about politics, it's so many levels that we can talk about when it comes to it. And I can tell you from my personal experience, I've seen so many players damaged by politics.
Yeah. I was damaged by politics.
I think we all have been.
Yeah, I know I was.
To some degree. I think to some degree.
And I mean being on both sides of it, where it was in my favor, and also at times where it was against me, where it wasn't in my favor. Either way, both of them are a handicap.
Yeah.
Because then you, like you mentioned before, you might have a kid who has some talent, but then because of politics, he's getting more time than he should.
Yeah.
He thinks he's a better player than what he really is. And sometimes that keeps a kid from growing because they don't have to get any better. And then I've seen it the other way where a kid should be playing and he isn't, and there's a lot of different reasons. I've seen it in college where if it's a coach that did the recruiting, he's going to try to play the kids that he recruited. You know,
That's
and that's just part of making himself look good. And so you know, and I'm sure you've been through that a lot. I'm sure you can allude to that.
I mean, I just tell people like this, man. This is my perspective. After middle school, it's a business, and you have to understand it and approach it that way. It's a business. It's a business. Unfortunately, in high school, coaches can't be fired. But when you look at the college level, you look at the NFL level, this is their livelihood. They got to play the best guy. They have to find the best guys. In high school, it ain't like that because people don't get fired, so you have a different perspective. So politics has a higher impact in high school football. You still have some politics at every level, but it's just not as much,
in Texas, they'll fire you.
Oh yeah.
So
in Texas they'll fire you.
It's a different standard.
Yeah, it is. It's a different standard, and especially when you have states that are open. They don't have they have open transfer rules and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Coaches got to play the best guys.
Yeah.
They got to do the right thing by the kids, and you can't have politics involved. But going back to the topic of what prevents people from reaching their fullest potential, I think a lot of times people's perspective on failure is off. I think people don't view failure the right way. They view a mistake as failure. And failing is just going forward. When I make a mistake or when something doesn't go my way, I got to pick myself up, dust off the dirt, and then keep pushing forward because I want to fail my way forward. And that's where I think environments that help maximize guys reaching their potential are the environments and the atmospheres that have a right perspective on failure.
A challenging environment.
Yes. You have to have an environment that's going to put some pressure on you. It's going to dust you up. It's going to love you, but it's also going to press you. And if we can't be honest with you about your failure or where you need to improve, it's going to prevent you from growing.
Right.
Because growth is what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Potential, the most overrated word is potential. And so I don't like hearing the word you got all this potential because it don't mean nothing if you don't do anything with it.
It's a gallon of milk.
Yeah.
Potential's a gallon of milk.
It's what you do with it.
If you take care of it, it's like a gallon of milk. If you put milk in the refrigerator, you take care of it, you use it by the expiration date, you can maximize the potential of it. But if you leave that potential, that gallon of milk out on the countertop, it's going to spoil.
Yes, that's a great analogy.
And the thing about potential is it has a shelf life.
It has a life.
And at some point, it's over with. And I think sometimes that with being kids, a lot of times when we're dealing with kids, they believe in infinity. They don't think that there's a time where your sport is over. We're trying to encourage them to maximize their potential.
I can say that from experience.
In that window, so they don't miss it. And I think sometimes they don't see the incoming, and so a lot of times they can stunt their own growth because they think they have plenty of time.
Yeah. And I want to touch on what he said about fear. I think, when you think about politics, that's more from the authority side of things. Authority controls the politics a lot of times. But when you talk about fear, that's more of the person that's actually in it.
Yeah.
And I think going over my experience and the kids that I've been training over time, I think, when I was getting politics in college, because I didn't really, experience politics until it was actually college. I was always I was never on the other side because I feel like, I went to a high school where they played the best players. You were forced to play the best players, because we were a smaller school, 2A school. We only had 500 in school. But then you get to college and you get some more authority around you, and when you're getting politics, then, me and Dre we had a company meeting the other day, and we were just talking about, I think Ethan Chambers was in it, and he was showing a video of Dre. He was trying to clown Dre in the meeting, showing a video of Dre catching a pass over a DB and throwing the ball down. He was like, bro, you're in practice, you're spiking the ball, making fun of him. And I had to step in, and I'm like, there's a lot of history behind that. This is a kid that everybody on the team knew that politics was giving him the
bad end of the stick.
The bad end of the stick. Well, politics was getting him a starting position because his uncle was an NFL player.
Yeah.
He probably donated some money or something. So he was out there and he was playing, and everybody knew he shouldn't have been playing, but he talked the most stuff.
There was a target on his back.
So he was on that side of the politics.
Yeah.
I remember as a player, because he came in, I had to get moved to a different position, and I was scared. I was really scared. And I'm like, damn, I'm going to a position I've never played before. They're moving me because it's politics right here. You know what I mean? Because of this kid, he's going to be put in the position I got recruited for, and I got moved, and I'm just terrified. And because I couldn't control and master my thinking, like I said, to overcome that failure or overcome fear, I missed my opportunity when it came. So I think if we can when people don't reach their full potential, I didn't reach my full potential in that position because I was nervous all the time. I had fear in the back of my heart. I had fear of messing up.
Yeah.
I had fear of getting embarrassed. I had all that fear.
Or just a general fear of asking the right questions. So sometimes you have to tell our athletes too, ask the question. If you feel like something isn't right, rather than just being quiet about it and allowing things to happen, go into the coach's office. I mean, that's what they're there for. Knock on the door, sit down.
If they gonna keep it a buck,
but you have
some players,
you have to at least give them the ability or the opportunity to be upfront and honest with you.
Yeah, some coaches don't allow that.
So you have to approach it from both directions. You have to push on your end too, and some of them don't. But
you got to make the attempt.
But you got to make the attempt.
Jody said something, and I want to read this because this is critical because there is politics at every single level, and the severity of the politics and the effect that it has depends on what level it is. So Jody said, politics exists in every level of society. However, politics at high school can greatly divert a child's future.
Yes, it changes the whole trajectory because it happens. It impacts them at an impressionable time, and they still trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And so the trauma is greater when they have less maturity.
And you have parents that are trying to figure out too.
Yes.
So it's not just the child. A lot of times the parents are inexperienced in sport themselves, and so they're not sure what to do.
And that's the one thing that I'm gonna bring up. We can come back to this, but having the right advisory council around you can limit you or progress you to maximizing your potential or stop you. And so having the right advisors to help you navigate through this sport, this athletic game is extremely important. And there's good advisors and there's bad advisors. And we're not talking about positions.
Right.
We're not talking about positions, but we're talking about advisory from people who have gone through different situations and have some experience on helping you navigate the process.
And not just somebody that loves you. Because
Yes.
sometimes we fall victim of the people that love us who give us advice, and they just don't know. I mean, it's not their
fault. And it can have a negative impact. Positive intentions with negative impact.
And their intention is there.
Or they do know, and they just don't want to give that individual the truth.
Yeah.
It's been more times where I've seen it come on now, let's call a spade a spade. That individual, that person needs work.
Right.
Yes.
He messed up. That wasn't right, And I think that is the biggest thing where I talk about when I talked about value and environment, because you get in an environment, and this is where it's tough for the player, because when you're in an environment where the parents, I'm going back to parents because we've had this conversation on the last podcast, where you're in an environment where you're in an environment where we're always telling kids what to work on, what they need to do better, how they can reach their full potential. And then you get home, and then it's like, oh, you're good at this, you're good at this, you're good at this, you're better at him than this. I will never forget the first time, and when I started training, and a parent came in here and was just like, I don't understand how this kid is doing this. My kid should be doing this. My kid is this. I
remember that.
And I was just like, I sat there, and I was like, I'm gonna do a disservice to this parent if I don't tell them the truth right now. First of all, I've seen your kid one time. You cannot compare your kid to somebody when you don't know the fruit of his labor, and he's been doing this for 3-4 years, and that's why he's in that position. Like, you have to tell your kid the truth.
Yeah.
Truth hurts.
Yeah.
but truth will always give you something to grow on, like Antoine said. I think
You can call me Twan. You can say that.
Twan.
He struggled, Antoine.
But when it comes to parents or just any type of person that's leading, I think the thing that we have to, and we can go back to politics and we can do an episode 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, infinity if we want to. But I want to say, not just from a parent standpoint, but anybody that's in authority, we often think that our sincerity qualifies us to lead. So like being sincere and loving an individual does not even qualify. It doesn't qualify you to lead people.
Right.
Like you can be sincere and ignorant. You can be knowledgeable and unsincere, but they both have to meet. So there has to be a balance on what that is. And so
That's good,
parents
Dre.
often come in here with a lot of sincerity, a lot of love for children, but there has to be the seeking of knowledge, the ability to learn, to understand, to grow, in order for us to really help and balance out the process for a child. And so I think that's a critical thing, because you have politics that separate, maximizing potential and not reaching it. And then you have parents who can do it as well. But then you have coaches. So like when I'm talking about parents, I'm not referring just to those who are biologically in authority over a child. I'm talking about us. Like we're considered athletic parents.
Sure.
And I can say all I want. I want Ethan Chambers to be great, right?
Yeah.
But hell, if I don't understand what the hell the process entails or what it takes, and I'm not willing to challenge him, myself, and those that's surrounding him, then we're not going to get anywhere with this. And so it takes a great deal of humility for us to really get a player to a certain level. And that is where I think a lot of it falls, is because the support and the foundation as to which a child develops
It's so critical.
It's critical. And oftentimes when we see players that don't maximize it, it's because there was a crack in the foundation, and we got to figure out where that crack was. And I tell people all the time, if I'm working with a child and I see a crack in his foundation, like for me, like personally, like I'm not lying to a child.
No,
I don't care how much you're anti this and that. Like I'm not lying to a child. Like I would tell a child straight up the reality, and obviously it depends on the way
Gotta nurture 'em.
You talk to them
There's a
and the
balance,
language,
right.
but I'm gonna just be straight up real with them. This is a situation. A lot of players that I deal with, they come to me outside of the football realm.
Right.
It becomes way bigger than that.
That's
should.
the other thing that I was going to say is sometimes we cater so much to the athlete's potential instead of the human's potential.
Correct.
Right.
And if we focus on the human potential, it's going to translate over into the athletic potential.
Absolutely.
Well, that's what we do.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we talk about all the time.
Yeah,
We start our coaching. That's our foundation there.
And some people don't understand that that's our philosophy. That's why we're set apart. That's what makes this organization and this team special, is because it's not about just what's on the field. It's about what's off the field and how can we take what's off the field on the field and then maximize the potential from there.
Absolutely.
Human development is so
That's it.
It's so
That's
critical.
everything. That's everything.
Yeah.
And that's why we're very guarded about even letting new people into this thing, because we want to make sure that they're coming in with a certain foundation.
right.
They have to have that emotional intelligence. And I think that's what Dre's alluding to, is when you're able to tell somebody their rights and their wrongs, it's about how you deliver that message. Everything depends on the package. And I think when you have some emotional intelligence, I think this is an area where a lot of coaches nowadays are lacking in. They just don't understand how to connect with the child. It's hard for them to deliver messages. Even if they're the right messages, it's hard for them to land where they need to because they don't know how to package it. And a lot of times coaches aren't teachers. I think a lot of times because we've had foundation in education, we've done it for so long with character development. I think you're losing two things nowadays with coaches, which is emotional intelligence, even being aware of where the kid's at emotionally. And then being able to communicate to them, being that teacher.
They can't communicate if they can't connect.
Right.
They can't communicate if they cannot connect. Right. So often, coaches lead from this position
of authority.
And they look at a kid as being a kid.
Right.
And sometimes this kid could actually have some information or have some experience that exceeds the coach's capacity.
I've seen it.
That's what I was getting on.
And their lid, and the coach can't connect because their ego.
That's the word.
They aren't even aware.
Bing,
they
bing,
have
bing.
one, and then they what they do is they keep this barrier, this line between their position and the kid. And so the kid can't communicate and the coach can't communicate because they're not connecting.
Right.
And so any leader knows you have to come down and meet whoever you're trying to lead where they are so you can understand them. This is just communication one-on-one. And then you can communicate and understand and then bring each other, and you guys can rise together.
You said ego.
Yeah,
ego is
that's
that
the
thing
word.
that wants to protect us all. So sometimes that coach doesn't want to have that conversation with the player because it might expose that the coach might not know as much about that subject that he thought he did. And maybe that kid has more intelligence in that area than him. And they won't even go there because the ego won't allow them to.
That's where
And when we talk about ego, let's clarify what ego. When I'm saying ego, I'm talking about ego of who we view ourselves to be. It may not be actually who we are,
Absolutely.
but it's our perspective of who we think
Who
we are.
think we are.
Yes,
To the outside.
yes.
And oftentimes we misperceive.
Yes.
A
That's
lot
my
of times we
point. We
misperceive.
missed the mark.
And when it comes to authority figure, like, man, I learned so much from these children. So
Yes.
much. And somebody questioned me one day when I first got into training. I never knew I was gonna run a daycare, athletic daycare.
What, Drake care?
Drake
I never
care.
knew I was gonna run.
Hey y'all,
daycare.
Drake. If y'all out there and y'all want to run some errands and you want your child to get some exercise, bring them to Drake care.
Nah, don't do
Drake
that. Nah.
Dre love the
It
kids.
closed down. I may open it back up.
Dre
with my
love the
son.
kids, and you know what I'm like? I'm like them kids, them kids, man.
So,
Come
No,
get your
but
kid.
no,
when it
Antoine
comes-
love the kids.
When it comes to, and my perspective of when we talk about maximizing children and maximize the human, the athletic, the player side, I think we in authority have to understand that we in authority have no authority for real.
For real.
Like we're
It's given.
we're judged based on the way we manage our interaction with them and how we help them get to a certain point. So a lot of times when we think of authority, we're like, I'm the judge. I got the gavel. This is this is
Yes.
that. That is not necessarily the case.
not at all.
It's not.
Like you're judged based on the way you manage that relationship and how you help that person or individual get to a certain level.
And you know what I think from an authority standpoint, coaches, even parents, we do this. I found myself doing this. We struggle being what the kid needs us to be at the time.
Right.
Timing
That could change. What I'm saying is we want the child to conform to everything that we want them to be.
Right.
And every kid isn't the same. So the best coaches become what they need to be to that kid. The best parents become what they need to be to that child.
Yep.
And the onus is on us as coaches and parents to be that.
Yep.
And we're so, we have an ego as parents. We have our parental ego, and we have our coach's ego. And so sometimes we hinder our effectiveness because we're not growing.
Right.
We're not improving to be what that child was sent there to be for us at the time.
Or we try to.
Does that make
force them-
sense?
Or we try to force them all into a box.
That's what I'm saying.
So we know we were raised a certain way, so we have this box and this ideology about how kids are supposed to be raised, and we're trying to fit everybody into that square box where you got circles, you got triangles. And I think what you're saying is it takes a little bit of intuition on our part. So,
Yes. Consciousness, awareness.
Awareness. You're not a machine. Everything is not all on one accord. I mean, it changes, and you have to be able to be flexible. For instance, we have multiple children, right? I got 4 kids. Everybody up here except for LB. We're waiting for LB. We're all
you knew what it was made for. You got 4.
right. I got
That's what it's made for.
And a fast post. I got a fast post.
Yeah,
too.
you fast track.
But in knowing that I have 4 different children, I can't approach them all the same way. I understand how each one of them are geared. Some of them I can be a little harder on. Other ones I have to be a little bit more coddling. But you have to understand how that kid works, and you only know that by spending time with them.
Yes.
You spend a lot of time with them. You get to understand them, and then you know what approaches work with them. Because the whole key is do what works, right?
It's about effectiveness.
It's about
Is it effective?
effectiveness.
Yeah.
Is it working, right? And if it isn't, then you try a different approach. But sometimes as parents and as coaches, we get so caught up in our systems, right? Like I know some coaches like, this is my system, and you have to run my system. Well, if you're not really tailoring your system to your players, then you're being mechanical, right? And I think in life we need to be more conscious than mechanical.
So rigid. Yeah.
And I think the biggest points that I'm sitting here listening to y'all talk about is every individual is not different, and understanding when to use your ego and understanding when not to use your ego. And then also understanding that even in life in general, and I learned this from you guys just watching y'all, in life in general, no human being knows everything.
Right.
And you have to learn every single day.
Yes.
No human being knows everything. You have to learn every single day. Like, I wake up in the morning knowing that my goal is to learn something new every day. So if I'm coming in here and I understand I'm training 35 athletes, none of them are the same, I'm going to learn something from each and every single one of them in that day.
You should.
So it's like, for me, and when you talk about the ego, I think any kid, I can think of Jorge Valdez, I can think of Aaron Stewart, who I've been training for a long time, and now they have so much information, and they're learning from other places too. I can come in and try to teach something. They can be like, but wouldn't this work better? Wouldn't this be? And I can be like, damn, you're right. You know what I mean? Like,
and that's
right.
healthy. That's healthy.
You're right. Like, dang, okay, like, how can I add this to my progression to help the next athlete get better? But I know for them who have reached a certain level, that might work best for you. But you learn doing this first. So, all right, now how can I transform my training to make sure that elite level, been doing it for a long time, get better like this, these people still need to go through this. Like, it's progression. But I think when you talk about every individual is not different, and you got to know when to use your ego. I think before a game and you're trying to give a pep talk and you're out there and you're like, man, smack him in his face, he's not better than you, blah, blah. Like, that's the type of ego I'm going to use as a coach. Yeah. I'm not going to use the ego to the point where I'm the best coach. Like, I would let, first of all, and that's humility too, what Dre talked about. Like, I'm never going to call myself the best coach. I'm going to let somebody else tell me, because I'll never feel like I'm the best coach. I feel like I always have something to get better at every day, to the point where I can help these kids get better at. So, understand when you use that ego, and then understanding that, as a teacher, the student is going to teach you as well.
That's right.
That's
when the best learning happens.
That's how
if I know for me, especially, working with quarterbacks, I look at it as a challenge to figure out how I can get this kid to learn, because it's all about him getting the information. Right. Everybody doesn't process it the same way, so I enjoy that. But I don't want to get too far off topic.
No, we good. Well, one of the first questions I ask players now that I didn't when I first started was, what's your learning style? I asked them, because instead of me having to find out, let's expedite this process and you tell me what that is, so we can be better in terms of our transformation and our development, our growth.
Can I tell y'all what I do? So if we're in 6 months off season, around month 3 or 4, I make them do a disc profile. I make them do a disc profile, not just for me to understand, but for them to understand how they process information. Because knowing their personality, how they receive, how they process, how they respond is extremely important. And half of the time, and this ain't a jab at parents, half of the time we don't even know our kids.
No idea.
You know what I'm saying? We don't know them. So if you don't know how a person thinks and processes information, you don't know what they're going to do.
Right.
Contrary to that, if you know how they think and how they respond to information, you know what they're going to do.
Right.
And so if parents aren't doing that, I'm pretty damn sure coaches ain't doing that.
That's big, though.
Well, for me, when y'all talk about, that's why I don't like doing private sessions. I know from a quarterback perspective,
I don't like privates.
I don't like private.
I don't like
sessions.
privates.
The
That's
reason
just
I don't
an
like-
ego.
Why, though?
I'm
open
gonna
to
tell you
everything.
why.
I'm gonna tell you why I don't like private sessions, because
They don't promote growth.
It doesn't. Like, I mean, first of all, private sessions could be good, but it's going to be a lot more time for me to help a kid grow, where I think in group settings, when you can see other people doing stuff, then you
see
can try
them
to
do it
apply
right
it and
or
mimic.
fail.
And
Going
like
back
my
to
whole
your
thing
environment.
off of my environment is I always love like having kids that have been training for a long time in a group with somebody new, because I know that you can get discouraged coming into a group, seeing somebody be able to do something so well, and then you're like, dang, I'm not getting it. But day one, we're going to teach you how to
That's
get over
vision.
adversity.
Yeah.
We're going to teach you about vision. We're going to teach you about how repetition
Is the mother
is
of
the
learning.
mother of learning,
And you can see the result. So if you have somebody in your group who's been there for a long time, you have a new guy. Like, we all know what it's like when you first get on ladders. And when you throw ladders on the ground, you have a guy that hadn't done, and you got one guy who's been doing it for 6 months. There's a drastic difference between them.
It is.
And I think what you're saying is a little bit of monkey see, monkey do. If you can see a guy and you see how to execute it the proper way, and then now you can try to mimic that. Yeah. And in a private session, you don't really get that.
Oh, and I mean, you only get one type of learning in a private. When you're in a group, you get to attack all the different type of learning situations. You get the visual, you get the application, and then you get the competition out of it. You know, that's in my mind, that's how the best way, like, I've created a form.
That's how we create growth.
That's how you create growth.
And our atmosphere promotes it.
Yeah, and then in the competition aspect, you're probably going to get embarrassed, but then it goes back to what I started with, like, how are you training your mind?
That's a part of the sport, right?
Because in our environment, we require competitive excellence. That's why our athletes
and if you run away from
different.
If you run away from it now, which a lot of people do because of what they value for one,
or their ego.
And if you run away from it, it's going to come a time, like how we talked about, you're going to hit college or you're going to hit the real world where you cannot run away from this competition, and it's going to expose you because you're not mentally ready for it. Yeah. And that's the thing that I would say for most parents, to don't keep your kid away from a struggle. You have to force your kid to struggle. The struggle, and then you have to talk them through to be able to, like you talked about failure, analyze the failure. Let's not get mad about the failure. Let's sit back. Why did we fail? If you can't tell yourself why you failed at something, you're never going to be able to grow. So
failure is some of the best lessons.
It's the best lesson.
So I have a question. I know the answer to it, but I have a question.
Hold on, before you say that. Failure is the best lesson because it forces us to look back and evaluate and analyze. When we win,
if you have the right direction.
Yes. Very few people have the wherewithal to evaluate their wins. And so there are some people who do. There are some environments that promote that. But most of the time, we're focused on the result and not the process of development.
Right.
So I just wanted to.
Yeah, no, and that's a big point. Go ahead.
But also, personal failure doesn't necessarily have to be personal failure.
It doesn't.
So it can be anybody's failure in that same department that you're trying to grow in. And so a lot of people say experience is the best teacher.
I think other people's experience is the best teacher.
Because you
can avoid it.
You can avoid it. But a lot of people think that like children now, I've talked to some children. It was like, why you do it? It was like, well, I just had to go through it. No, you didn't.
Damn that.
You didn't have to go through that same struggle that somebody
next to you just did. Yes.
And I think that's the thing is that if we can identify other people, that's why they say study those who came before you.
That's right.
Why do you study
Success
somebody who
leave
came before
clues,
you?
man.
Because you can identify what you should and what you shouldn't be doing. And all of it. Clues are,
success and failure.
So that's
clues for sure.
So that faculty right there is one of the greatest faculties that human beings have, is the ability to recall. So to be able to go back in the time, evaluate something, and take from that forward what you need to have a different result going forward.
Sure.
Ran into a similar issue last weekend. Traction Athletic Performance had their flag football team down in Tampa, Florida for a national.
Shout out to TJ.
Shout out to TJ
for
the championship.
Shout out to the kids.
They sealed the deal. They brought it home. So
they was down there trapping.
They were down there trapping.
I know y'all don't like that, but we trapping. TRAP. Traction
NFL
AP.
flag football national champions. And so my youngest son was playing on the team, and he wasn't playing a lot. He's young. He's a 6th grader, so he wasn't going to get a lot of playing time. But my message to him was just be ready for when you do get the opportunity. So one thing you have to do is it's so important to talk to kids when they're in that space where things aren't happening the way that they should be happening for them. But the team around them is having success. You want to be careful with that just because you don't want them to be a cancer, obviously. But then you have to understand how the team's success is your success.
That's right.
Every player on the team has a purpose, whether you're riding the bench or not. But the key was just to tell him to be prepared for when you do have the opportunity.
Ready for the moment.
Be ready. And then he got in the championship game and made a lot of big plays in that game, and it was huge. But it was about having him prepared for when you do get the opportunity. If you're going to be complaining about not getting it, you better be ready when you get it.
Do you know how many people? And
this is about to be profound, y'all. Listen right here.
No.
Invite some friends. Dre about to drop a nugget. I'm telling you.
Do you know how many people? You know how powerful the seed is, right? Yeah, you drop it into the ground. You sprinkle some water on it. The sun will take care of it.
Cultivate it.
It can grow wherever. But and in certain obviously environments, it has a greater rate to grow than others. Do you know how many parents see drop negative things in children when their child is not the one benefiting from, personally benefiting? I wouldn't even say the child. It's the parent that's not getting the emotional fulfillment from it. So
the kid could be fine. He's happy with them winning, but the parent is upset.
And so Destiny Jackson said something, and she's a young lady who studies, and she's very mature for her age. Mm-hmm. And after the Austin Mack podcast, she had made a post on a story that said, detach your emotions from your development. Mm-hmm. And what happens is we can never separate our emotional state from the reality of what things are. And what happens is that
emotional clumsiness.
We get clumsy in it. And so when it comes to, my wife coached 4 years and had a successful program at Northrop. She was over 500. She had a winning season every single year.
She was dope.
She was really good at what she did. She was.
You ain't gonna. Right, shout out to Rashida Muhammad because she was killing it.
She was really good. And if you were around the amount of negative seeds being dropped into the children that were in the program, it was really bad. And so what happened was, here she is winning. The program's winning. They're doing a phenomenal job. Now, every program can improve.
Sure.
Right? Like, Alabama can improve.
Yeah.
I don't know where the hell they can improve at, but they can improve somewhere. But the way they play.
The analytics suggest it.
They need a better water boy or something.
You know what? Fifth down. On fifth down, they can get better. They can get better on fifth down.
And so in all success, there's ways that you can improve. And what you would see is, even in the successful times, there were attitudes that were just like, I don't want to be a part of this. And it was just like, the parents have to be careful because, children are a ticking time bomb. You say something at the wrong time and they become the cancer that spread. And when you become a cancer, sometimes you can't even see that you are the cancer. And one of the worst things that you can be a part of is a problem and not know that you're the problem. Mm-hmm. And I think that is something that we all have to, because although, certain people may not have been involved with it, any one of us with the wrong seed in our head can become an issue. Mm-hmm. So it's not hypocrisy and disbelieving and negativity is not limited to a certain group of people. It's everybody. You can do that overnight.
And there's levels to hypocrisy.
And there's levels to it. So I think that's something that parents have to be careful of, like you said, is that even coaches, like, what are we saying to children when they get into these situations? Because one of the other things that stop athletes from developing is comparisons, right? I think parents, adults, I think children, it's not the comparison that's the issue. It's the improper comparison.
Hold that thought real quick. I just want to make sure we tell the audience what we're talking about for people that just chimed in. Let them know what we're talking about, and then go back to that point.
We are diving into what prevents an athlete from maximizing their full potential. That's what we're talking about, right? And it's a lot of stuff that we can talk about, but I think when you talk about Antoine, you interrupted me, so I apologize.
I'm so sorry.
I lost my train of thought. But what was I?
You're talking about hypocrisy,
and then I said, "It's okay, Antoine."
I apologize. No, I just saw a couple people pop in, and I'm like, I wonder if they know what we're talking about.
You're talking about the parent. Make sure they're planting the right seeds in the child,
and make sure you do it, because I think any one of us, when it comes to what we say to the children, that word or that seed, and it can be subtle. It can be, we just won by 20 points, but how many points you have? I had 4. Mm-hmm. Oh, well, tell such and such, you better get this or we gone. Mm-hmm. And we put children in a bad mindset and a bad mind state to run away from difficult situations. And as LB stated, your degree of elevation is based on your degree of struggle. So, like, it's the rubber band effect. Like, you can only go so high based on your struggle. If you ain't willing to struggle, you ain't going nowhere.
That's good.
And that's just life in general. If you look at all life, things that God created, it has to struggle. Like,
struggle's necessary.
It's vital for your growth and your development. And parents have to be able, and coaches have to be able to identify what is the struggle and how do we help them get through this. And I think, Twan, you mentioned this, is we have to be able to empower the children to do it and not hold so much power in demanding and determining and dictating what they should be doing in certain situations. we don't always have the answer.
Yeah.
But sometimes we think we do have the answer.
Yeah.
And it ill affects a child because trust is another thing that blinds. It blinds identifying who is logical, who's for you, who's against you. Like I was taught when I was, coming up that there's two people that you trust. You just come into the world trusting. That's your parents and that's God. So you hear grandma or somebody say, "Don't question God," or whatever. So that gets put into your head that I just got to trust them completely. Or your parents, because they've done this, and over a period of time they've put food on the table, or they put a roof over your head, and they put clothes on your back. So you grow in trust. And then when a parent says something that they may not know anything about, that trust level is so high that you can't even just cipher through. Is this right for me? Is this wrong for me? It's like when my mama said it. That's why children argue. My mama said this, and my daddy said this. It's a trust level, and I think we have to be careful because when we allow children to trust us, the way we direct them, we have so much influence over that. So much.
I've actually seen it be taught to kids opposite too, where the parent is actually encouraged that they challenge authority all the time. And so it's difficult for the kid to be in tough situations with anybody that's an authority figure outside of their parent, because if they're not getting the result that they want, then they're taught to challenge it. Yeah. So it's about somehow I'm not getting what I'm supposed to be getting from you. And I've seen that actually turn kids worse than when they just are too trusting. Is when they are taught as a young kid to challenge authority. That most of the people in authority are against you. And that happens in the black community a lot. A lot of times we're always taught, challenge the man, fight the man, go up against authority. But if that's not done properly, if you allow that to happen without restraint to it, without parameters to it, then it can grow itself out of control.
And that's why I think you have to detach emotions from your development completely, whether it's the parent, because the parent has to now be. When I watch my young son, and I watch him maneuver, it's very interesting to me because I can't understand what he's saying. He's starting to learn and understand what I'm saying. My wife can understand him really well, and I can't put the words together yet. But he's following the example. He's becoming the master model of what I'm doing. So sometimes I'll sit on the wall and I'll lay back and I'll just be chilling, and then I'll see him 2 days from there, doing the same thing. And I'm like, where is he getting this stuff from? And so parents, we have to be fluid in our development, and we have to be honest and coaches and all of us that are in that authority figure, because children are watching and they're going to duplicate the actions that they see.
And it's the thing that can be frustrating to parents is that really our kids are mirroring our unconscious behavior. So what we do and we don't even know, that's really what is setting their rate, their autopilot. And it's a very frustrating thing if you're not aware. So what do you guys think that coaches, parents, people that are that have some influence, mentoring kids, what can we do to help close the gap on the potential? So we talked a lot about issues that prevent it, but what are some things that y'all think can be done? How can we help these kids who we've had people come through here that we know and we've been very close to, that we've identified certain issues early on, certain traumas, certain behaviors, and we try to do our best to save some of them. Some of them we get emotional about when we think about it. And they had a lot of potential.
And we failed in that area at times. Well, we felt like we did.
Yes.
We felt like we did.
And it does take a village. It does take a village. But what are some things that we can do?
I think, and I'm just gonna talk like not only sports, but I think actually understanding the development aspect, knowing people have to develop. I think of two things. I think of parents, like Dre said, removing the emotion in the development, and I think of coaches or people in authority. Understanding that the kid has to struggle. Parents and coaches understanding the kids have to struggle. I look back at my athletic career, and I was able, and I really don't agree, and it's not a shot at any coaches, but it's just, on the high school level and middle school level, I don't agree with if a kid has certain potential, not letting him play up. I think when I was growing up, I grew up always getting to play against people like Dre, who was older than me, playing against Ashanti Jones that was older than me, all these kids that were older than me, and that's how I got better. And I think, a lot of times where, kids that go to a high school and either the coach doesn't want, the coach wants to keep them with the team. And I get that, there's team activities to keep a kid with the team. But I think, freshman, sophomore year, when you throw a kid into the fire, by the time he's a junior, he's going to be that much better for your team. Mm-hmm. And I think that, the seniority thing is good. I think that's very
it's healthy.
It's
it
healthy.
May not be
it's
good.
healthy in certain situations, but let's not do that in the competition realm. Let's do that as a leadership standpoint, or a who's going to lead this prayer, who's going to lead this talk, who's going to lead this lift or something like that. But I mean, I think a lot of times, and that's from a recruiting standpoint, how we started too, because for me, I was able to get recruited a little bit better because I had film earlier.
Yes.
I had film earlier. My film came from freshman, sophomore year. That's how I got above the curve. And, every situation is different like we talked about, but I always think it's healthy for a kid to go through a struggle, parents and coaches included, and then remove emotions out of it. I think about Ben Skoranek, me starting and training and watching Dre and Mike Lito put Ben Skoranek as the camera guy.
No, because he didn't make the team. He didn't make the team. He didn't make the team. And Aiden Smith.
Yeah.
They didn't make the team. They were on the development team.
Yeah, and their parents removed all emotion to let them – they still paid for them to practice with the team. They still paid for them to come to the tournaments. They were sitting there filming, and that's how they learned. And both of them went to start at their colleges.
Power 5.
Some of them.
Ben is about to go to the NFL.
Right. About to go to the NFL. I mean, they all went through politics, but like,
congratulations, Bennett.
Once they got through politics in college, they knew how to maneuver around those politics, because we weren't really politicking them, but we were also teaching them how. All right, you didn't make the team. How are you going to overcome adversity because you didn't make the team and be better? And they stayed in it because they removed emotions and they grew from it. Now, I mean, how do you go nowadays? I'm seeing times where dudes are quitting teams, dudes are going other places because they don't want to develop. And I think that's different from when you're actually good enough to play. Like there's two differences. Like there's a difference when you're just not ready yet. You can get a political game at home where, we're going to jump here, But then there's a situation where it's politics where you're good, but you wanted the seniority situation, or you want to set a certain standard that you don't play at a certain, I think just having that balance. There's balance in all of that and removing emotion.
Yeah, I think there's three things, and then just kind of to jump with LB on this is that people can run programs how they want to run programs, right? Mm-hmm, so, sure. But the less and less you run it on principle, the more you're exposed, and then what happens is you can have a successful program, run it the wrong way for a long time because you have quality players. And then once you get to a certain point, because everything evolves. So if you keep running off of this way and you don't have the principle and the foundation set, then the truth of that situation is going to be exposed. And so if you're going to do it, just be prepared for the exposure in a negative way to come into the program. Yep. And so I don't believe in seniority, right? I don't believe that when it comes to production and playing, it's like, who's the best player? If I'm at Leo and this 8th grader can play high school, we come on up here and play high school and start. To me, it does not matter because the objectives are different. When you get on the field, the objective is to win.
Yes.
Right? To win. So
listen to this. Go ahead, Drake.
And so
please listen.
If there's a freshman that can do if the freshman is similar to the senior in terms of productivity, of course you get a senior an opportunity to prove its case. Prove that you can do this.
Or you let them start.
Right? Because the production is right there. But then obviously there's, I'm thinking long term and I'm thinking short term. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let both of them compete. I'm going to give the senior his due diligence, his case. And I'm going to say, just do. But then this freshman who can do the same thing I need to squeeze them in there. I
Got
need
to.
this because it's about short term, long term. How do we bridge this together? And then the more success you have, because what's happening is these younger players in this world now, which was different.
The culture is changing.
The culture is changing. So these younger players are becoming a lot better, a lot quicker than what they have been in the past. And what's happening is, if you're not prepared as a coach to handle the productivity or success as a young player, you just shy away from it completely.
Yeah.
And so you got to be able to evolve with time.
I think that go like how we set it up now in 707, pool play versus tournament play.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? I'll be the first one to pull somebody off of the 15U team and bring them up in tournament play because their productivity was better. So when you talk about a senior and a freshman, I'm going to let them – you guys are both going to get – especially if you're equal, I'm going to give you guys both opportunity. Whoever's producing more, when it's crunch time, I got to go with this guy. He's been producing more, you know, and I think that's the competition aspect and also the best way to help your team win because now you're teaching them, but then you also have to teach them certain principles as this is still your teammate. It's still like, I'm going to compete with you. The main goal is to win. So when I win, no matter what, you guys both got opportunity. If we win, we're happy, and we both got better at that same time because we both got equal opportunity. Right. We both got to compete each other. We both are on the same team and we won. And I think that's preparation for sports. Yeah. That's also preparation for the real world. In the real world, they'll fire you now. Man, you lose everything because you're not producing in your job description.
Let me tell you about an experience that I had when I first started training, and it was one where I came in, I had, a degree of knowledge as it relates to developing players. I was learning from Jeff. I was learning from Carl. I was learning from Aaron, Lane, Mike. There was a lot of people that I was learning from, and I would take that with my experience and I would put it into a player as best as possible. And one of the things that I wouldn't say messed me up, but it challenged me, was when Austin Mack, who was a studious and, he wants to learn, went off to college. So here we are, me and him working together, and he's elevating. And he gets to a point where, if you know Mac, he wants to ask questions. Like he has to know. And it's like, if you that parent, if I was that dude, I was like, hey, man, just because I said so, me and him would have been fought. Like, we would have, literally fought. Not even though, or we would have fought because that's how serious he is about learning. And he peaked, made it to the opening, was All-American, went to Ohio State, and came back. I never forget, he came back, and we were doing drills. But the drills that we were doing were similar to the drills that we were doing when he was elevating. And he said, yo, why you still do this? Why you doing this and why you doing that? And I looked at him, and I'm like, yo, this what got you to the point. We're going to keep on doing it. But then I had to refrain from, allowing my ego to come into a picture for so long because here he is. He elevated to a whole nother level that I have never coached at. And so it's like, are you going to be that dude or are you going to humble yourself and learn? So now you got a whole group of dudes that's coming after him.
The challenge is on the coach now.
On the coach. And if I elevate my understanding at that level, then these dudes are going to grow faster, quicker, and go longer than what maybe he could. And so that was a challenge for me. And I'm not a dude that's like, I have to be right. Like, I want to be right over a period of time, but I want to learn and I want to, try theory out. And I don't have to be absolutely right at the time.
So that's a hack right there, right? We call them hacks. That's the nugget. That's a nugget. You don't have to be right,
coaches. You don't have to be right. And
you're a scientist.
Get it right.
And so
you have a hypothesis.
And that's the thing. You got to be able to try it out. And what I did with Mac was a little bit similar to what I did with Ben. But Ben would say, you should, this is what they really work on at the college level. This is what and so I'm learning and I'm evolving. And what happens is now when it comes to training those dudes, I still learn from them now when it comes to the skill. Like, to a point where I'm not so driven by title and ego that it's like, man.
All right.
Man,
so I got a question. Do you think that private training and it has a benefit in helping people close the gap on their potential versus those who don't and just play the sport? Because you have, especially in basketball, right, you have AAU and you got year-round leagues because, they can play indoor year-round. And some guys just play, but they don't train. Do you guys think that private training has an impact potentially on guys that have high lids, maximizing their potential?
I think it's subjective to the individual. I think that
So you are. Let me ask you this: do you think a guy can maximize his potential without a private trainer?
I think I think a dude could. It takes a great deal of study, observation, and application to do so.
But it also depends on who he has in his environment.
It's who's he's around.
So you think Kobe Bryant could have been Kobe Bryant without his personal trainer?
No. I'm not saying that. But I also think Kobe Bryant got to the place that he was because of the environment he was in. His dad was a overseas basketball player that reached a certain level, and then that nurtured him over time. But then, like Dre said, he got to the point where, like Austin Mack, and like I said earlier, like learning from other people, understanding that, all right, he's exceeded what my knowledge that I can teach him. He need to go learn from somebody else.
Sure.
And I think that, like, if you think about Kobe, when you talk about Kobe Bryant as an example, his dad taught him to get him towards, Marion, or he was Marion High School, to get him known for the league. Even back then, I'm pretty sure he had a high school coach who he did one-on-ones with or something like that. That was
a private coach.
A private coach. Yeah, a private coach. But I mean, like, Kobe's high school coach was legit, though. You know what I mean?
That's true. That's true.
But then at the time, all right, he's exceeded the NBA. Now he goes he's at the
highest level, and he hires a
trainer.
It's about maintenance, maintaining, and staying there.
Yeah.
But every guy, when they get to peak level, they hire somebody private. Tiger Woods did it. He got to the top of his game, and he hired a private.
That's why kids in high school, when they get to college, they don't excel the right way because they run away from certain experience because they think they know it all. I've seen not in my own experience, but seeing around me, I've seen people that try to, even somebody that helped them get to a certain level, they try to shy away from them, try to go some other way because of what they value. It's either, all right, cost, or I think I know it all now. You know what I mean? So it's like, then they get to college and it's like, I think the biggest, and from my experience and seeing people now, the biggest phrase, and I've said it in the last podcast, is suffer the pain of discipline or suffer the pain of regret. Discipline yourself to do what's right, do the extra, go the extra mile, don't think you know it all, suffer that pain of discipline, or later on, you're going to regret it. And all of us, I'm sure all of us can still sit back and be like, man, I regret not.
Not me.
Missed opportunity.
Not me.
So real quick, while we having this discussion, for everybody that's watching, go ahead and hit that share button. I need y'all to hit that share button. Hit that share button. Ping them in, bring them in. Ping them in, bring them in. Hit the share button. And, we're going to keep adding value to the conversation. I know Lawrence Barnett has to leave us here shortly. So we're going to keep the conversation going. But right now we're talking about what it takes to close the gap on your potential as an athlete, and why athletes don't reach their fullest potential. So
and we got somebody on here, and to speak, because LB speaks a lot about environment, because we know that it's critical. This is the one thing I want the people to understand about environment, because we hear it, but I don't think we really pay too much attention to it. Environment is not just what surrounds you physically. It's what surrounds you mentally, morally, spiritually. It's like it's a surrounding, right? And so the thing with environment is that environment has hands, right? And every person that goes into an environment is symbolically or similar to wet clay. And what happens is once you go into an environment, the hands of the environment start to work and they shape you, right? And so when the hands work, the hands are nothing more than a manifestation of the mind, right, Darrion?
Absolutely.
The Kabbalah, and the whole principle thing. And so, when it comes to what we want to become and who we are and who we desire to be, and how do we want to close the gap and maximize our potential, if the environments that we're in aren't in the same mindset of where we want to go, then why do we even sit in those environments? Why do we spend time? Like, I was driving up here this morning, and I'm not anti-rap music. I listen to rap music.
You do?
I do. I just don't like the cuss word. I don't
Who
like
you like, Jay-Z?
Jay-Z, J. Cole.
That's my guy. That's my guy.
I like, I like the new I want to say conscious music that they're trying to, they're trying to push out. I do like
on the
that.
low, they sneaking
Yeah,
it in
they
there.
are. But Lauryn Hill, that's my girl. So
bro.
when it comes to music, but I was driving and it was early in the morning, and my brother can attest to this. When we were young, my dad would always listen to DMX in the morning. Like, and DMX was like real aggressive, and he was like, like you. And so what happened was, I would get up in the morning. I would get up in the morning, and you would hear it. And as he was rapping, I would get mad before I went to school.
Yeah,
I would be mad when I
that was
got
your
into
environment.
school.
It set the tone.
And I didn't know why the hell I was mad. I was just mad. Like, just walking in. And so I think we have to be very careful, because whenever we go into an environment, we're being shaped and formed and fashioned in a certain way.
Yeah.
And we're being conditioned, and we got to be careful, because children are so impressionable.
They are.
Like, my child right now has been the quarantine game that we got on him. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about the government can't quarantine us enough. My son has been quarantined in a certain environment because he's only going on 2. So everything that he sees, he hears, is putting an impression on him, and it's being locked into his memory, right? And the problems that he has, that he'll face when he comes up in life, are going to be based on the solutions that were put into his head. Mm-hmm. Sure. And so you got to be careful about that, because that environment is critical to maximizing the potential. And we're not talking about, achieving high levels of potential. We're talking about maximizing. Mm-hmm. How do we close the gap from what we can be, what we should be, and what we will be if we take the right steps from where we are, right? And so I think that's important when we talk about LB, and he talks about environment. We just got to be very, very careful about what we do.
And that's how conditioning works. There's actually a experiment that they do where they put a monkey in a cage. And they suspend a banana in the middle of the cage, and there's a platform in the middle of the cage. And so every time that monkey goes to stand on the every time that monkey goes to stand on the platform to try to reach the banana, they spray the monkey with water.
Yes.
And so they do that several times until the monkey gets discouraged to stand on the platform and grab the banana. Well, then they introduce a new monkey into the cage. And so the new monkey doesn't know any better. So he's trying to get on the platform to get the banana.
Yes.
Well, they spray both the monkeys every time they do it. After so long, the original monkey that's in the cage starts to grab the other monkey like, look, don't stop trying to get up on, you're getting
pulling
a spray.
Him down, yeah.
They take the original monkey out the cage. They add a new monkey in, new dry monkey. Mm-hmm. The new dry monkey gets in. He wants to stand on the platform to grab the banana. The new monkey beats him down every time he tries to get on it.
Yeah.
After so long, you have completely new monkeys in there who had never been sprayed. But they've noticed that every time you try to get on the stage, what we do is we just grab the monkey that tries to get on the stage and we beat the crap out of them. Yeah. They don't even know why they're doing that. But it started from spraying them from the beginning. And now these monkeys that are in the cage, we're never the ones being sprayed. Mm-hmm. But that's how conditioning works. So you insert new people into an environment, and if the environment was a certain way for a certain period of time, it's going to garner a certain result. And the people in that environment may not even understand why that's happening to them.
And condition is a critical – what's going on? And condition is an important thing, because when we talk about conditioning, I think one of the things that comes to my mind is the mental conditioning. When we talk about – Lavina asked a really great question on here. She said – when it comes to the best interest of a child, we got to start questioning those who are in leadership. We got to start questioning why what's the reason for you leading? Mm-hmm. And I think for us, we have to look at the things, in our positions as to why are we leading, right?
What's our purpose?
What's our purpose for leading? I never. So when I train an athlete, or when I'm doing anything that involves an athlete, I never do anything with them with the thought in mind that I'm about to get something out of this. I don't ever, like, that's not a focus for me.
What's in it for me?
Like, what's in it for me? And the reason why I don't is because I don't think, and I said this on a podcast with Destiny, I don't think that there's one individual, I don't think that there's one athlete, and you can add all the athletes with all the money in the world, they can't do anything for me that God can't.
Right.
So, like, I don't need to worry about an athlete doing for me, because if I'm doing right by the athlete, I'll be taken care of in a grand scheme of things. And so that does have to be a question that has to be asked.
What's disheartening about that statement is you actually have coaches out here who really could care less about the athletic ability of the kid, and they're more so concerned about the potential of the parent. So you have some coaches out here. You have some coaches out here who have a total ulterior motive for why they coach, and they're more concerned about the potential of the parent than they are the potential of the child. And that to me, I've seen that more and more nowadays, and that is actually really disheartening.
Yeah, and conditioning. So this is a challenge for all of us, and those who are viewing it is.
Let's finish with this too, man. Let's finish with this.
Yeah, because we got football practice
people
too.
And people's attention span ain't.
No, they listen. They pay attention. They might be upset that we done. But to finish with this, we'll definitely have a part 2. But to finish with the conditioning,
I got to go jump on Clubhouse.
We were just talking about me and you got to rap.
I got dopamine.
Yo, we got to rap because I need to know. I need some invites, man. I got to get it.
Okay. If Harvey Scruggs jump on there, I gave him an invite so I can get my invites back. I'll be cool. Go ahead.
Let's go ahead and finish with this. So when it comes to conditioning, one of the things that we do here is yoga. Yeah. So yoga is a practice that allows you to become more flexible. It allows you to become more mobile. It just stretches you out, obviously, right? That's the thing that people see. And when you think about stretching, obviously there is a elongating process of the muscle so that you can maximize the muscle. And what happens is, have you ever been, and I think we all have, right? We've been in shape and we've seen what it feels like. And then after a while, you get done playing sports, you're like, man, I'm going to be like that for the rest of my life. And then life takes over, and then you're trying to get back in shape. And it's hard as hell to get back in shape.
It's hard to get in shape. It's hard to get up and work out, let alone get in shape.
The mindset where you can get up at 5 a.m. and you can go put out maximum effort. Now it's like 5LB does it. But when you get up at 5 a.m., it's like, I don't got no reason to get up. And so what happens is the muscle, the mental muscle is the most important muscle. And so what happens is that how many of us don't want to stretch our mental muscle to be able to be more forceful, to be more productive, to be able to be more mobile in the way we flow about life. And as leaders, you have to be able to be fluid. And so, but if you are so tight with what you believe things to be in, the way the structure should be set up, and you can adapt to who that you. A leader is only as good as his ability to get the greatest out of his least follower.
Right.
Man, that's so heavy.
And I said that so fast, and it just came. I don't know what the hell I just said. So we can replay that.
The chain breaks at the weakest link.
The weakest link. And so
we always got to be reinventing ourselves.
Always. And so when I look at what we can do as people in positions of authority, or people who are in positions of management, is that we definitely have to become more knowledgeable about the process. We have to become more knowledgeable about the process on the surface level, and then we have to dive deep. Shout out to More Than Athletics, because when it comes to recruiting,
yes,
she
Janae
can definitely help
on the
in
map.
that process.
MTA.
I'm about to blow that thing
Hashtag
up.
MTA.
There's a huge market for that.
The human development that Dre's getting ready to start, and then also that Donovan Martin is already doing
mental performance. Kathy,
I had a session with him yesterday.
I need one too.
It was good. Thank you, Donovan.
Shout out to Kathy Little for the yoga.
Yeah, and then the second thing that I wanted to hit on is that after we learn, we have to be more protective of the environment we allow children to be in. Like, we got to be protective of that. And, you know, my parents, it was all night skating that you can go all night. And then you had that 7 to 11. I always was able to go to 7 to 11 if they permitted me to do.
My parents let me stay till 12.
Not
12
me.
midnight was a cutoff.
I was 7 to 11, and
in there,
they allowed us to have some flexibility in doing certain things, but we were in a guarded environment, right? So it was protected, and you know, naturally children rebel, right? We gonna rebel. I snuck out the house once. And I did it once. My brothers and them probably wasn't off the chart with it. You know what I'm saying? They probably was out there wilding, but I did it once.
I ain't never snuck out.
I did, and I never did it again because my car was too loud.
I never had to.
I never
Mom,
had to.
I'm leaving.
And so we just got to be very protective. And so what? The child may get mad. Sit them down, talk to them. Like, you know how great environments can be, but you also know how negatively environments can be our hobby. If it can impact the environment.
Oh my God!
So I think that we have to be the ones who set the tone about if this is what you want to do, these are the environments that we got to keep you in or we got to protect you from. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily that you won't go out and do certain things and, go against, but, man, what you say you want to be, we got to hold you accountable to doing it.
Right.
And as a parent, 2 years into it, like my whole focus has shifted completely from it's not about me. And we were preparing for a long period of time for us to remove ourselves from situations so that we can give more to the child that we want to bring, bring into this world. And I think that's the thing as coaches is that, man, we got to know, and parents, we got to know what type of environment are we setting. Because if it's shaping us, then really it's not the child's fault. It's our fault for allowing certain things to happen. Sure. So I think those are, critical things. And, again, this is a topic that we can talk about on and on and on, and we'll bring up. I think we got a couple weeks before we get back on this, and we'll get back on live. But we definitely appreciate every single person jumping on with us. Share.
You gotta tell them to subscribe, right?
Subscribe
to hit the like, share.
Subscribe.
Hey, can you guys do this? Leave
share.
A comment, positive or negative, but it's got to be at least 5 words. Can you do that?
We want to grow from it.
We want to grow from this.
Honest feedback.
Honest feedback.
And then lastly, what's your Instagram handle?
My Instagram, follow me at Antoine Taylor 08. Let me repeat that. Antoine Taylor 08. ANTOINETAYLOR 08. IG.
Follow me on EL_BE_7. And then Eclipse_training on Instagram.
Just follow the Traction page. You don't need to know nothing about my personal life. Just follow the Traction AP.
And then you'll see Dre Muhammad on there, too.
And you'll see me every now and then. We got 3 podcasts that's coming out. LB did a great podcast with Jake Archibald. We got a podcast with Griffin Little. We got a podcast with Destiny Jackson. So go ahead and get ready for those. Those are going to be popping up here in a moment.
Yeah, you can go to my Instagram. It's D_Blanco. D is in David _Blanco 25.
How do you spell Blanco?
BLANCO. Spanish for white. D_Blanco 25.
So that's cool. We out. We appreciate everybody for coming on.
All right, peace and love.
Peace.